Billy here. Spring has sprung. Totally. It's a very nice warm day. Look at this. Isn't that magnificent? I think that's a plum tree, I'm not sure. And the cherry trees are coming along. They're wee little bugs. It's nice. Well, the little wormin and the three Bildy juniors and the kids, they went on a walk. I wanted to see an old friend of mine who lives here. Is an Englishman, quite proper him. Was a retired policeman. He's been here for years. He's lived here a long time. He's an oldster, but he's riding a scooter now. He's sporting a new Chinese scooter. He's doing all right. Nice guy. Peter. Talk about how things are here. He's a smart lad. I like listening to him. You can learn a thing or two. Well, today I'm going to talk about culture a little bit. You know, we have our European culture. There's no European culture. They're trying to make one. Artificial cultures usually are doomed. They revert back to kind after the artificial constraints are taken off and the force that was applied to make them something else. There's French culture, Italian culture, British culture. I wouldn't say British, it's English culture. Because within British culture, you got your Irish and your Scots and your Welsh. Did I forget anybody? It's interesting. See culture in architecture. Everybody knows that. Nothing new. It's not a shocking statement. But you see it in technology too. I was kind of an exotic car mechanic at one time back in the 80s, mid 80s, in Houston. A friend of mine had a shop. British Sports and Imports, specialized in British cars. Not exactly exotic unless you're talking about a TVR or a Lotus. We got some of those in. Mainly we got Morris Garage and Triumphs. Ugh. Some of the old Triumphs are pretty cool. Once they start putting the stand part engines in them, and when they went to those wedge shape, whether the TR7s, don't ever buy a TR7. I don't care if they give it to you. Anyway, we got a lot of Italian cars. Cheap, like Pininfarina bodied Fiats. Cheap sports cars for the American market, like a 124. What was the X19? I think that was a Bertone bodied Fiat. I think that was the thinking behind the Fiero, because they're just like them, only a lot crappier because they're Fiats. Same design. They even looked an awful lot alike. Yeah, I worked on all those. See, my buddy, he had a backlog. He had a whole huge lot completely jam-packed with cars. You couldn't even get one out without having to move a bunch of them. And there wasn't any way he could catch up. So I'll help you. And he was very generous because he's desperate. He gave me like 50% of the gross. That's pretty good. And I moved in there. I started clearing them. I was a tramp at the time. I was doing some motorcycle tramping. Didn't even have a place to stay. I was just bumming around. Had a little office space about 5 feet by 10 foot maybe. Yeah, I put a cot in there. Had a place where I could take a shower. A toilet and a small shower and a little place to sleep. That's all I need. I was a happy camper. I just worked all the time. Went to church too. That was after I had my religious epiphany. Sunday morning, Sunday night. Didn't work on the Lord's Day. Kick back. Oh, it's Wednesday. I went Wednesday nights too. Because the rest of the time I was working. Got it all cleared out. Lots more still coming in. He never turned a job down. But anyway, I got to work on some pretty cool stuff. We'd have an occasional XKE come in, or one of the Jag sedans. Antique stuff. One thing I noticed, you could see the culture. Even the, what do you call it, the stereotypes in the mechanical design. German stuff. We had German stuff too. Audis, Mercedes. I think we even had an old was it the 120? Wasn't the Gullwing, but the really, really old, early German Mercedes sports car. Yeah, those are cool. French cars, everything. Oh, it's so nice. Such a nice day. Well, the German cars had a lot of intense thinking behind them. They'd make use of everything. Big picture kind of stuff, the way it fit together. Sometimes it kind of worked against you. French cars, they were all about style. Pretty cool thinking on behind those too, very balanced. Italians, I mean, you could see the difference in the architecture of the machine. The way things are fastened, everything. The British were silly. I mean, they're just silly. Eccentric. They used, where an American would use, put your transmission onto your bell housing. 4 big bolts, one in each corner. European thinking doesn't go like that. You have to make the castings thick. You have to make it really robust to have everything at 4 load points, holding something that has a lot of torque and a lot of side loads on it, which your transmission does when you're really stepping on it. Torque goes through it. Europeans like to distribute that more evenly. And the British answer to it was, if I remember correctly, the bell housings are pretty much cast into the transmissions on most of them. And they attach to the engine with numerous little tiny quarter 20 Phillips screws. Serious, Phillips head screws. Like every ½ inch all the way around the diameter of it. Well, even your bell housing on an engine on an American car, you got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 bolts, 7 at the most, and they're big. Yeah, the British will have like 40 little tiny quarter by 20 Phillips head screws. I thought it was really silly. It's a different way of thinking. Everything's thought of in terms of little Phillips screws and Whitworth sizes and teacups. Yeah, you see the culture come through on the designs of everything. That's a good thing, I thought. I still think it's a good thing. You don't see it anymore. What's that have to do with geopolitics? A lot. We'll talk about that on my other channel, Geopolitical George. We're going to take this little talk I'm doing here on the culture coming out in mechanical architecture, and we're going to extrapolate that so that we can see, a demonstration of one of the things that we're trying to preserve with a fourth political theory, such as Neo-Eurasianism. No, I haven't been drinking. That's how I talk, and that's how the word sounds. Only let me do it again. Neo-Eurasianism. I said Neo-Eurasianism. My Foster Brooks impression. Anyway, I really like seeing the way things came out in the machines they built in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. Motorcycles too. British motorcycles are really silly. The oil pump drives on the old pre-unit Triumphs that were like looking inside a watch. They had all these gears and rockers and reciprocating backward linkage to make two silly little pistons go back and forth really slow to squirt oil into everything instead of just having a rotary pump. They like stuff like that. It's kind of fragile. And don't even get me started about Lucas, the father of darkness, Lucas Electrics. They invented intermittent windshield wipers inadvertently. The only thing is the intermittent part is like working, not working, and they didn't work when it rained. The silliest thing was the Jaguars, the V12s. People think, oh well, Jag V12. Oh, they're only like 326 cubic inches. And you have dual overhead cams, huge sprockets, lots of tensioners, all on the front in an oil case. And they make the cam wheels tiny little sprockets, so you can adjust the sprocket on it by like a half a degree at a time to really tune it in, which you have to do frequently because they drive the whole thing with about a 9-foot long bicycle chain. You take it for a little jaunt around the countryside, and then you got to have the mechanic go through and adjust everything. It's World War II aircraft technology. They designed them like fighter jets. There was a little Lord Fauntleroy. Chauncey, tell my mechanic to drop the Jag off at the turning circle in front of the door. I'm going to go for a jaunt. Then when he brings it back, it's taken back into the carriage house, and the mechanic goes through everything and adjusts it and spends the rest of the day putting it back to right so it's ready for the next time. But then an American buys something like that and they expect to drive, a 500-mile trip with no problems with it. Doesn't happen. Then what the hell is wrong with this thing? I'm going to buy American next time. Going to get me a 409, buddy. Different way of thinking, different technology. It's for different ends. For different cultures. That's all been taken away. Well, the French cars even seem normal now, kind of. Always had an affinity for French cars. I had a Renault i18 back in the 80s. It was fun. They called them Les Cars in America. It was a fun little monocoque coupe. Didn't have anything resembling a frame. Didn't need one. It was like a little ball. It was tough. 2-liter wet box. Well, you motorheads are having a gas with this, but people that aren't really into this stuff, I'm probably boring your socks off. But it does tie into culture. That's going to be my main point. Things, your artifacts, your cultural artifacts, even cars, your cool modern chariots are made specifically with your cultural technology, for good or for ill, and for the use that your culture would put it to. Whether it's practical, whether it's just a plaything for little rich boys, or whether it's something partway in between, which is what Americans always wanted. Something you could haul the family in and get groceries and still have a little snap and be stylish, and have a fine sporting appearance. And you could drive out to see Grandma on the West Coast without any problems. We all have our preferences in these things. but I think we can not impose our vision on other people. Once technology, now here's the money phrase, once technology gets to a certain point, the mechanics, the mechanical demands and pure mathematics and pure logic of materials and use erase all the differences. I don't think that's a good thing at all. It's not necessary, but that's what's been happening. So all the cars look alike. We could really demonstrate that here. It's not so much they imitate each other. Ladas, Subarus, Chinese cars, Geelys, Great Walls, Cherries, French cars. The only difference really is the grille for the most part and the badging, because manufacturing techniques have certain demands. There's no artisanship, there's no craftsmanship. No great coach builders making names of themselves, producing rare and fine pieces of art which are distinctly Italian or distinctly English. Your great coach builders in England, what was that? Rolls Royce. They'd pretty up Bentleys and other lesser cars and rebuild them and make them more stylish and fit everything better. I don't remember what the name of that company was. It had a strange name. But that's all out the window now. It's all about what they can pawn off on the public, minimal standards, different economic levels. I still like French cars. I'd like to have a little runabout here. Of course, a scooter would be better, but a little runabout keep you out of the weather in winter. Have these little Citroen and Peugeots. They're almost identical, but oh, they make Nissans almost exactly like them. Just the styling's better on the French. They look like they're put together a little better too, and probably a lot more expensive. Some of my friends have Chinese cars and they have no problem with them. I first started seeing them show up around here about 2007, 2008, and they sounded like they weren't going to last very long, and you could smell burnt metal when one drove by. They were awful. They got it pretty much going now. They've got the quality up to snuff. They got all the bugs worked out. They had a lot of German and English and American engineers going in and helping them. Yeah, they did it themselves too. Chinese have over 400 car manufacturers last time I checked. See some every once in a while here I've never heard of them before. There's a Hoover. Tourist season, this guy sports around a little Hoover. It's pretty nice. It's pretty cool looking. Looks like a 21st century of the old Jeep Commandos. And has great big giant headlight covers and big plastic discs round over the headlights. It looks like the Superfly Pimpmobile from back in the 70s. I mean, just the headlight treatment. They're pretty cool. I couldn't believe it. They called it a Hoover. Where'd they come up with that? Oh, it means quality. Like the vacuum. I wait until I see a Chinese built a car called the Electrolux. But there is no distinctive Chinese characteristics in any of the Chinese cars. They're just like the European ones and the Russian ones, the American ones, the Japanese. There's no difference. The technological logic, the manufacturing logic, the purpose, all dictate the design. So it's all the same. It erased everything. Can this happen in other areas of culture? Do you think? Besides auto manufacturing? I think so. I think it has. Especially communications and our arts. Corporatism. Corporations have done this. It's not just the technology, it's corporations maximizing profits. Not maximizing quality or standards, because art and culture is part of your living standards. It's part of what you need. Do you get that now? I don't think so. the difference between vernacular architecture like you'd see in Taos, New Mexico, or a lovely little English village in the Midlands, or well, let's go somewhere exotic. Oh, you get the idea. Cultural, a place to live and raise a family that's informed by your culture, as opposed to something designed by science. They were the guy that designed these. The committees that designed these were fans of Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier was the French architect, I believe. It sounds French. That he murdered architecture. Yeah. And his influence murdered it here too. This building over here. That's the way they built them in Stalin's time. This is Khrushchev. Khrushchev, the practical bureaucrat. Well, they had to catch up. There's a huge housing shortage. They could have built those though. Hope it didn't make anyone dizzy. Sorry about that, I forget. Oh, look at that one. Anyway, just my 2 bits. Some things to ruminate on, and I hope I have presented them in a memorable and entertaining fashion. And we're going to address this on Geopolitical George fairly soon. I'll get it in there before too long, and I'll try to post some links to some interesting stuff. Anyway, Uncle Bildy, I gotta go get some groceries. I gotta get some victuals for my kids. I scored a little money. Or my wife gave me some for groceries. Geopolitical George, signing out.